In this split-level house, the kitchen is down here in the basement, so it's a fairly dark room. And the homeowner wrote us about her cabinets. They're a little beat up, and she wants to lighten them up by painting them. So we have called in our painting contractor, Rich O'Neill. Good morning, Rich.
Good morning, Kevin.
Tracy, how are you?
Good, how are you?
All right. What are the options, Rich?
There are two primary options. One is to strip and refinish, restain in polyurethane the cabinets.
So I have to strip down all of this wood, take all the polyurethane off?
Right, it's very time consuming. The other option is to paint them.
And you're thinking painting, right?
I think I've decided on painting because the other, with painting, I'm going to really brighten up down here. So I think if I go with a nice trim color here, it'll really complete the look and brighten up the kitchen at the same time.
So when we paint them, Rich, what are we actually painting?
You'd always paint the exterior faces of the frames.
Yeah?
Also both sides of the doors.
Yeah, because we'll see those when they're open, right?
Right. And then always you would paint the faces of the drawer fronts.
So right here on the face, what about the actual drawer box itself?
You can also paint the inside of the drawer box and the sides. You can also paint the interior of the boxes. But it's very time consuming.
Well, what do you think, Tracy? You up for that, or you want to leave these the natural wood?
Well, I think if I'm going to go ahead and do this project, I'm going to do it the right way, and I'm going to paint the inside, so it looks
like
nice.
to hear that. She is up for it. So, how do we get started?
Well, the first step is to remove the cabinet doors. I like to remove the cabinet doors to gain access to the face frames and all the edges of the doors. Remove the bottom hinge and then work your way to the top. It's very important to label the cabinet doors to make sure there's no confusion when you go to install them. I like to remove the bottom hinge and then number the door and put some painter's tape over that to make sure that it doesn't get painted over when we paint the door.
So, Rich, we're going to need some supplies.
You sure will.
All right, so what do you say we take a trip down to the home center? You guys up for that?
Sounds great.
While we're there, I'd actually like to take a look at some of the knobs and pulls and some hinges to match.
All right,
In that case, it'd be a good idea to bring a door along.
let's go. What do you got there, Rich?
This is a degreaser. We're going to use this to clean the cabinets before we paint them. This is really important.
All right.
We also have a bonding primer. We're going to apply one coat of that. And this is an acrylic water-based enamel. We're going to apply 2 coats of that.
Actually, that was one of my biggest questions, is whether or not I should use an oil-based or a water-based paint for the cabinets. Why are we going with a water-based paint?
Well, for your kitchen, I'd recommend a water-based paint because it'll have better color retention, fewer solvents, and it will clean up nice and easy.
Oh, great.
But don't people like oil because it gives you a harder finish, and that's got to be important with kitchen cabinets?
Well, that's true, but oil-based paint has a lot of solvent in it, and it yellows and changes color very quickly. So my solution to that is to use a water-based polyurethane over the paint. We apply 2 coats of that, and it gives a nice, durable, beautiful-looking finish.
So now we're up to 5 coats, 1 primer, 2 top, 2 poly. That's a lot of coats.
Yeah, it is a lot of work, but the durability and the appearance are well worth it.
All right, you have some good-looking cabinets.
I hope so.
So I got brushes, and they were synthetic or natural.
Yeah, we'll go with the synthetic because a natural bristle brush will swell and become floppy when used with water-based paint.
All right, so those are in there, and then I got tack cloths as well.
Yeah, that's great. And it's important to make sure that you get dry tack cloths when used with water-based paint.
All right.
So that it doesn't leave an oily residue on the surface that could cause adhesion problems.
So you say dry. We've got the sandpaper. We've got the buckets. So all that's left is hardware for you.
Yep.
And we got to get this mixed. You have a color?
I do. I have a swatch here, and my trim color that I'm going to use is right there.
All right, we'll mix you good hardware. We'll see you at the checkout.
Okay.
Before we paint anything, it's very important to degrease all the surfaces that we're going to paint. So spray some of the cleaner onto a clean cloth and scrub the surface to remove all of the grease and oil so that the paint will stick really well to the surface. Using a palm sander, we sand the surface with 100 grit paper to abrade the surface and give it some tooth so that the primer will adhere to it really well. I like to use a palm sander because it's fast and it does a really thorough job. For the moldings, I fold the sandpaper over and use the crease to get into the edge where the panel and the moldings come together. That's great. It's always a good idea to dust off the surface and then use a tack cloth to get any remaining dust off of there.
So, Rich, we've got ourselves a clean door here. Are we ready for our first coat of primer?
That's right.
All right, what are we using?
We're using acrylic bonding primer to make sure that it grabs onto the polyurethane surface real well.
And you've got a bucket here with a liner. We'd like to see that.
That's right. I like to use a pot liner to keep the paint clean, prevent debris from getting into the gallon can, and also so that I can tap off my brush after I dip it.
All right, let's get to it. Actually, why don't we have Tracy do it?
Great idea. Here you go, Tracy.
You have the brush.
What you want to do is dip the brush and tap it on the side of the
Both
pot
sides?
liner.
Both
Yeah, both sides, that's right. And then bring the brush to your surface, starting at the moldings, at the edge of the panels. You want to paint all of the moldings, and then paint the field of the flat panel.
This is the field?
That's right. You want to work in 2 steps. Get the paint on there first for coverage, and then smooth it out to make it look nice and catch any drips or runs. That's great. Let me show you how to paint the field of the panel. Thank you. I dip the brush, tap it on both sides, and bring it to the surface, and just get the product on there for coverage.
Not too worried about how it looks at this point.
That's right. We'll get the paint on there, and then, with a fairly dry brush, we'll smooth it off and remove any of the runs and sags. Notice I put the brush into the corner to make sure that we get the bristles right into those edges. Now that I have the coverage, with a fairly dry brush, I lay it off in smooth, even strokes. And first I do the moldings, and then I'll smooth out the face of the panel. You can see I start in the corners and bring with long, smooth brush strokes from one corner down to the other. Bring it out of the corner and feather off as you come to the middle of the panel.
And so by feathering, you mean that you're actually reducing the pressure that you have on that brush?
That's right. You lighten up on your brush stroke and taper off the stroke so that you don't leave any brush strokes in the middle of your panel. And after you're done with the panel, we move on to the frame of the door, also known as the rails and stiles. And again, you work in 2 steps. Apply the paint for coverage and then smooth it out to make it look nice. You'll notice that I prop the door up so I can more easily do the edges.
Just a couple rolls of tape will do the trick.
Now we're ready to do the back.
So you've got a couple hooks that you put into the door?
That's right. We'll use these to hang the door while we're painting the back.
So you've got yourself a little ingenious station over here. 2 ladders, 2 2x4s on the top, and then a whole series of hooks here. I presume to hang doors while they dry, and then 2 more right here?
That's right. So this will be a painting station, and we'll hang the door from these hooks while we paint the back. After that, we'll move it over to a drying area.
All right, now, Rich, we got to critique her here, right? See if she picked up on any of your lessons.
Yeah, the first thing is we have this little trick. We put a screw in here in one of the screw holes from the hinge. You can use that as a little handle so that the door doesn't swing back and forth while you brush it.
Now, does it matter if I do the field here first or if I do the edges?
Yeah, you want to paint the back just like the front. So you'd paint all around the edges of the panel, just like you're doing. Painting the door while it's hanging like this and holding on to the screw as a handle is actually a little bit more difficult than painting it horizontally on the table.
But if you laid it flat on the table, you'd have to wait for each side to dry, and it'd probably slow the whole process down.
Exactly.
Looks good. So time for the drying rack?
That's right.
And you've got the hooks here. Are these on the top of the door?
Yes, we put them on the top of the door for the upper cabinets. That way they're into what we call the blind side.
I can't see them up high, and then on the lower cabinets, you probably put the hooks in the bottom.
That's right.
All right, so we've got about 15 more doors to do, right?
That's right.
And we're going to have what on them?
A prime coat, 2 coats of paint, and 2 coats of water-based polyurethane.
All right, that is a lot of work left. We're not going to stick around for the whole job. Are you up for the task?
Absolutely.
All right, well, we'll check back in with you and see how it looks.
Okay, great. Thanks for your help. Okay, Rich and Kevin, you came all the way out here. Rich, you're supposed to be the professional, and you did 1 door for me. So I guess I'm left to the rest, and I'll show you what a girl can really do. Finally. Goodbye, old hinges. Well, let's get degreasing. It's pretty dirty. It's a good thing I'm tall. So I'm ready for the first coat, and I'm going to give this roller a shot.
A few weeks ago when we left Tracy, we put her to work and we wished her luck. Let's see how she did. Hey there, Tracy.
Hi, Kevin.
Wow.
So what do you think?
Boy, I like it. This is a far cry from those dark oak cabinets you used to have. You've got yourself a contemporary kitchen. But more importantly, what do you think?
I think it looks fantastic. It came out a lot better than I thought it would. I'm really happy.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. And it was a lot of work, wasn't it?
Oh, most definitely. It actually took me 6.5 weeks from start to finish.
Wow.
And that's because I did an extra coat than your recommended 5.
So we recommended 5. 1 primer, 2 top coats, 2 coats of poly. What'd you do an extra coat of?
I did an extra top coat on these.
You did? Why?
Well, I wasn't happy with the look after 2. The saturation wasn't right. So I went ahead and did a 3rd coat of the top of the paint, and I'm really happy with the way it came out.
Well, good for you. It's your kitchen. And you did a couple things that were more off of our playbook too.
Yes, the first thing I did is I went ahead and I caulked around all the panels of the doors here
Yep.
to fill the gaps, and then I also caulked inside the cabinets along the shelving so the paint wouldn't bead up in the spaces that were there.
All right, good for you again. And you did all the inside of the boxes as well, and you did not use a paintbrush,
No, I actually used a foam roller for everything.
including the corners of these doors and this
Yeah.
beaded detail.
Yep, the edge of the roller is rounded. It goes right in there, and then when you roll it out, it smooths right out, and it looks great.
Well, obviously you perfected that technique. So a ton of work, but the result speaks for itself. It looks fantastic down here. And I got to say, you are no longer a student. You are a professional.
Well, thanks very much. I had a lot of great tips from you guys.
It was our pleasure.